Hey there, it's Jen Bengal here from Out of This World Literacy, and I'm excited to share with you today three mini lesson statements and books to go along with teaching the skill cause and effect. Cause and effect is a difficult skill to teach to our students, but it's a skill that's necessary for them to understand learning at the highest level when they're reading books. Cause and effect is basically, as we know, two different events that go together. One is the cause that comes first, then is the effect. The first book I want to share with you to use to teach cause and effect is called The Giving Tree. I'm sure you've heard of this book. It's very famous, very popular by Shel Silverstein. And it's about a boy who keeps taking and taking and taking from a tree. And then at the end, we know that the tree really has nothing left but a stump full of love. And it's a great book to teach cause and effect because the boy keeps coming back as he goes throughout his life and he keeps taking and taking and taking. And then the tree has an effect. So the boy is the cause, the tree is the effect, really, in the whole book. And the mini lesson statement that I have for you to go along with this. Readers use the words if and then to describe cause and effect so that they can make connections between two events in a story. So at the top of your anchor chart for this lesson, after you finish reading The Giving Tree to your students, you would maybe write the title, The Giving Tree, and then on one side, write if dot dot dot, and on the other side write then dot 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 as a T chart. Now, the way I teach mini lessons is I might model this first and I'll write one example at the beginning. So if the boy does this, then this is what happens to the tree. And as I introduce the mini lesson statement to my class, I'll read the statement and I'll cover up my first example with another piece of paper. And then when it's time to model, okay, this is a cause and effect example of two events. I'll just uncover that first example and show it to them. And then I'll invite the class to turn and talk to a partner. What is another if then example from the Giving Tree? And in this way, by having everyone turn and talk to each other, I'm involving everybody in the lesson and I'm just kind of watching who's saying what, who's participating, who's not. And I'll give them about a minute and then I'll ask them to stop their conversation and I'll invite them to share what their partner said with the group. And as they share, I'll write their answers on that anchor chart. And that way, everyone again is included. And we're talking about cause and effect. And we're learning if this happens, then that happens. If I forget my lunch for school, then what happens? So you can pull it out into real world experiences as well. So that's a great lesson to teach cause and effect. The second book I like to use to teach cause and effect is called Those Shoes. And it's about a boy who really wants these popular shoes, but they're really expensive. And his mom works really hard and she tries to afford them, but she kind of sends him to school with shoes that aren't those most popular ones. And I'll read this book before I start the mini lesson. Maybe I read it the day before at the end of the day. So then all I have to do when I start the mini lesson and I show the kids the statement on the anchor chart is hold up the book and say, you remember when we read those shoes? It could have been the day before, it could have been the week before. Kids remember. And I might just retell a little bit of the story to get them back into it. And then my mini lesson statement for this book that I would use to teach cause and effect is readers identify major events in a story so they can give their best reasons for why they think each event happened. And again, I'd make another T chart and I'd put Those Shoes at the title. And then I would put on one side of the T chart major events and then on the other side why they happened. So we're really pulling our thinking out here. We're doing a lot of higher level thinking, metacognition too, as we're going into cause and effect. So again, scaffolding and learning, I would have a few examples maybe written down first that I share with the class and model what I'm expecting them to do. And then I would invite them to turn and talk with partners about what they think is a major event and why that happened in this book. To transition them into independent reading time, then I may ask them to look for major events in the books that they're reading on their own at their own comfort and ability, just write books for them, and find what are some major events and try and talk about why they happened. And then at the end of the workshop, I will pull everyone together and ask them, hey, did you find any major events? What happened? And so I'm kind of following up with the learning, see if they can do what we did in our whole group mini lesson on their own independently as well. So it's a great way to kind of go full circle with your learning. The last book I use to teach cause and effect is called One Plastic Bag. And I love this book so much. I have two sons from Uganda, so anytime I can incorporate books from Africa or any African countries, I do that. And this is actually based on a true story of this woman who was tired of all the plastic bags being littered all over her country. So she decided she was going to learn how to recycle the bags. And she figured out how to make bags, purses, and weave these plastic bags together to make something new and take away all of the trash that was kind of found throughout their community. So you can see it's a really beautiful book as well. And not only are you learning then about cause and effect, but you're learning a true story and you're learning about another culture, and it's just a really cool book. So the mini lesson that I would use to teach after I read this book to my class is readers think about all the possible effects from one event. So they can think carefully about what could happen in a story. So in this book, there's one event, which is all of this plastic being littered all over this community. And there's multiple effects that come from one event. So teaching that actually one big thing can have a ripple of multiple different effects or events coming from that. So in your anchor chart, you would title it One Plastic Bag, and then you would write the event, the main event, and then have different effects, maybe a 3-column chart so they can see, wow, there are multiple effects to this one event. This is a higher level skill, right? Because now we're really going to that next level of cause and effect. But you can see how teaching just cause and effect can look different depending on the book you're using and depending on the mini lesson angle that you're using. Every time I write a mini lesson statement, I don't just focus on, oh, we're going to talk about cause and effect, because that's way too big of a topic. I want to narrow it down and I want to create a little avenue for it. And then I'll do 2 parts to my mini lesson. I'll have the statement of what my narrowed down lesson is in which I want to teach. And then I always include a so that, because I want readers and our kids in our class to understand why we're even doing this lesson. What is it about this skill that's important for readers to understand so that they can make the most meaning out of what they're reading? So those are my 3 books for you on teaching cause and effect and 3 different examples. I do have more cause and effect resources in a link in the product description or in the YouTube description below. So feel free to check out all of my other resources on cause and effect. And there may be a coupon code for a little discount too, if you're interested in more resources to teach cause and effect. And there are also links to these books that you can grab too if you wanted to use any of them when you teach cause and effect. I threw some links in for you to check them out and see more about those books. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.